this, Ann Coulter. She's just released a new book. There it is, In Trump We Trust. She's been a Trump supporter since he launched his campaign, and Ann is joining us live from New York City. Ann, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Great. Okay, so just a couple of days from now, Trump is set to make this big immigration speech. You've been vocal about this in terms of whether or not he is softening his stance. That's what everyone's talking about. You know, is he wavering, going back and forth? Is he softening his stance on immigration?
No, it turns out I don't think he is. And one little exclusive report I have for you. I was talking to some people close to the campaign.
Oh.
And they say, where did this story come from that he's giving a big immigration speech? This was apparently penciled on their calendar a few months ago. No one really noticed. Someone apparently at the campaign or working at the campaign or a janitor walking through the campaign called it into the press, and it suddenly became this big story, and they've been sort of taken unawares. Yeah, he's been talking about immigration a lot. He has since June 16th, 2015. But I don't think there's going to be any change here. And even the speeches he was giving this past week on the second point, is he softening? It was certainly presented as if he was softening, and he said some things that sounded a little stupid to me, but you know, it's happened before, it'll happen again. His speeches have been rock solid as he was doing the interview on Hannity, using some of the old Gang of Eight amnesty lingo. And I think he just fell into saying things that aren't really part of his plan when he was being pushed on what I don't think politicians should be talking about. And that's what was so refreshing about Donald Trump to begin with. We have a problem with illegal immigration, and instead of ever addressing it, the entire discussion has to be around the hardest case. No, that's what we must talk about first. That's what the politicians have been focused on. We're going to find, you know, the most deserving illegal alien, the one who's been here a long time, contributing, not committing crimes. It would be as if you're trying to write a law on, well, anything, on speeding. And instead of talking about the proper speed limit and what will save the most lives, we're instantly going to talk about, but what about the husband driving his wife to the hospital and when she's in labor and he's going 80 miles per hour in a 50-mile? We have to concentrate on that. We're going to rearrange the entire solar system to take care of that one hard case. No, the basic premise is all policies, with Donald Trump anyway, all policies, immigration, trade, going to war, will serve America's interests first.
But let me ask you this, Ann, because when it came out last week that there was talk of Donald Trump softening his stand on immigration, for example, this tweet came out from The Blaze. Trump supporter Ann Coulter, quote, "It's a mistake for Trump to soften immigration stance." You were talking about that concept of his possible change, and you say he's not changing now.
You know, I may suggest if you're going to quote Twitter, you should go directly to the source and quote my tweets. I was quite harsh on Donald Trump, and those tweets got a lot of press. Yeah, no, I'm giving him some constructive criticism, the things I was critical of. But I do think, having looked at the full interview, I just saw the excerpts from it, I think he was kind of being pushed into it because that was what he was being asked. And, you know, he's not a politician. That's refreshing in a lot of ways, but he will make mistakes, and I think one of the mistakes he's made is allowing himself to be pushed into answering every single question. I mean, it's great how he's so available to the press. It's great how he lets us see this unfiltered view into his mind, his jokes, his sarcasm from his Twitter account. But just because someone is asking you a question, you don't need to get into the weeds of the precise details of the immigration policy. I mean, Americans are compassionate, lovely people. I really think this is outrageous and offensive to act like there'll be some special deportation force and it'll be like Nazi Germany. Come on, give me a break. Americans are the most compassionate people in the world. It will be done compassionately, but the point is what is best for America. And no one who's come to this country illegally, stayed here illegally, worked here illegally, has a constitutional right to stay, whether they stay or go. I mean, and there's no deportation force. We already have one. It's called the Immigration Customs Enforcement. We have plenty of law enforcement. They are being prevented from doing their job right now with illegal alien, illegal aliens, murderers, rapists. The Obama administration won't deport them, and Hillary will make it even worse. So, yeah, of course he's going to concentrate on those cases. Can we at least start with the murderers and rapists?
Speaking of compassion, Ann, I wanted to ask you about Saturday night, because you were here in L.A. and you went to Rob Lowe's roast, and apparently many of the folks who went there to that roast roasted you instead. What was it like to sit there and have to take that from all of those quote-unquote comedians?
Well, I was there, as you may or may not know, you have an inside source working in your network there, with Lauren Sivan. Well, I must say, I'm not offended. My feelings aren't hurt. I am of the school, the sticks and stones school, on what words are appropriate. But as you subtly alluded to, a lot of it wasn't really that funny. I don't care. I don't care what somebody says in a joke, but I prefer my jokes to be funny. There were maybe one or two on me that were even setups as jokes. Most of it was just bile. And, you know, I've gotten kind of used to this from I was the most frequent guest on Politically Incorrect. And I always noticed there, you know, the big stars, no matter how left-wing they were, no matter how committed and involved they were, and I may name some soon, they were the loveliest people. They would be perfectly polite to me. It was always the has-beens and the wannabes who would just come out and denounce and be mean and horrible, whatever. But, you know, I don't care. I think people should not be thin-skinned.
Well,
but a lot of it wasn't that funny.
You can't be thin-skinned.
I was funny, though.
You can't be thin-skinned being as vocal as you are, Ann Coulter.
Thank you, Ann. The book is called In Trump We Trust. Ann Coulter, thanks for joining us. And by the way, I did pick up the book because I wanted to see what she had to say. And chapter 1 is titled Trump, the Great Orange Hope.
Oh.
Thank you, Ann.
There you go. Thanks, Ann.